A truck driver was crossing a bridge in Kemmer County when the bomb hit the center span. The footage that followed was captured by whoever was standing close enough to film it in the aftermath. The middle of the bridge missing, the truck gone, the driver dead, the concrete split by a precision American munition that hit exactly where it was aimed. A witness on the footage can be heard warning others not to approach, telling them the petrol leaking from the destroyed truck could ignite a secondary explosion. The bridge is not crossable. The route it served is not accessible, and that bridge was not chosen at random. It was identified, tracked, and struck because the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had been using that exact route to move weapons, missile launchers, drones, and ground forces equipment from the central regions of Iran toward its southern military positions. Right now, across the length and breadth of Iran, bridges are falling. Multiple bridges, confirmed destroyed, confirmed by the Iranian regime's own media, confirmed by footage of split concrete, collapsed spans, and darkened cities, struck by American precision munitions in an overnight operation that the Islamic Republic's leadership was warned about publicly by the American president himself. They chose not to believe it was coming. Bridge Day has arrived in Iran. But let's back all the way up because the bridge strikes did not emerge from nowhere. They were telegraphed in advance with a directness that virtually no American military action in recent history has been. President Trump said explicitly in public, on the record, that bridges and airports were the next category of Iranian infrastructure that American forces would target. Iran's official armed forces spokesperson acknowledged the threat. Elements of the Iranian leadership and many observers watching this conflict assessed that the announcement was rhetoric, that Trump says these things without always following through. Yesterday's threat became tonight's rubble in multiple locations across southern and southwestern Iran simultaneously, which tells you something important about how the current American strategic posture differs from prior administrations' approach to telegraphed military action. The bridge strikes did not happen quietly, without attribution, through deniable mechanisms. They happened openly, announced in advance, executed on schedule, documented by CENTCOM footage released publicly, and they are continuing as this reporting is filed. The Kohestan Bridge, the one where the truck driver died, sits in Hormuzgan province in the southern part of Iran, in Kemmer County, connecting various areas of the province to Fars province to the north. It was an IRGC logistics artery. The pattern of strikes across Iran has not been aimed at random infrastructure. It has been aimed specifically at the routes the IRGC uses to move military equipment from staging areas in the Iranian interior toward the southern front, the coastline, the Strait of Hormuz approaches, the port cities that serve as the operational base for Iranian maritime military activity. Cutting those routes does not just degrade the movement of specific weapons. It degrades the Iranian military's ability to reinforce, resupply, and redeploy between its central logistics infrastructure and its forward positions in the south. 2 people were confirmed killed at the Kohestan Bridge. 4 more were injured. These are confirmed by Iranian regime authorities themselves, a regime that routinely minimizes casualty numbers from American strikes. The bridge over the Shur River in Bandar Abbas was struck in the same operational window. Bandar Abbas is Iran's most significant Persian Gulf port, the home base of the IRGC Navy's primary fleet, and is featured in multiple prior operational nights of this campaign. Striking the bridge that connects Bandar Abbas to the surrounding road network compounds the damage to the port's logistical function that earlier strikes on the naval infrastructure and communications towers have already produced. A port that cannot receive ground traffic from the road network is a port whose operational function has been further severed. Military supplies cannot move into it, and whatever remains of its operational equipment cannot move out. The Shur River Bridge was not incidental. It was the ground logistics connection to a facility that the air and naval strikes have been working to isolate for weeks. A third bridge in the western part of Hormuzgan province was struck in the same period. 3 bridges in Hormuzgan province alone, in a single operational window. The concentration of bridge strikes in this specific province reflects a targeting picture that has identified the road network connecting Iran's interior to the Hormuzgan coastal zone as a critical IRGC logistics corridor that the campaign is methodically cutting at multiple points simultaneously. Remove 1 bridge, and IRGC commanders reroute around it. Remove 3 bridges in the same province in the same night, and the rerouting options become significantly more constrained. Bandar Abbas's railway junction was also struck. The combination of road bridge destruction and railway junction destruction in the same city on the same night removes both the ground road connections and the rail connections that serve Iran's largest Gulf port simultaneously. Bandar Abbas is not just losing specific military assets to this campaign. It is being systematically severed from the logistics networks that connect it to the rest of the country. A port facility that cannot be reinforced by road or rail, whose air defense has been degraded by previous strikes, whose naval assets have been reduced, whose communications infrastructure has been targeted, is a facility that is being operationally isolated as thoroughly as it can be short of physical occupation. The strategic logic of what tonight's infrastructure campaign is doing to Iranian military mobility deserves to be stated plainly. because the nightly strike-by-strike reporting can make it appear as though each bridge, each railway junction, each airport is simply one more item on a target list rather than part of a coherent operational concept. What the American campaign is executing is a systematic severing of Iran's ability to move military assets from where they are stored and staged in the central and northern interior to where they are needed operationally. In the south, on the coast, in the strait approaches, on the islands, Iran's military geography requires movement. The missile batteries that threaten commercial shipping cannot be fired from Tehran. The fast attack boats that have been harassing tankers in the Gulf cannot reach the strait from a staging area in Kohestan. Ground forces that need to reinforce coastal positions travel on roads that cross bridges over rivers. Railway lines that carry equipment from production and storage facilities in the interior to forward positions in the south cross junctions that can be struck. The campaign is not targeting the weapons in isolation. It is targeting the movement infrastructure that connects the weapons to the operational positions where they need to be to threaten anything. Destroy a missile battery and Iran may have another in storage. But destroy the road and rail connections that would move that replacement battery to a coastal position, and the replacement battery in storage is not an operational threat. It is equipment that cannot reach the fight. The bridge strikes are not symbolic acts of destruction. They are the systematic removal of Iran's ability to reconstitute forward-positioned military capability, even if it retains military equipment elsewhere in the country. Iranshahr Airport in Sistan and Baluchistan province in the southeastern part of Iran was struck. This target deserves specific attention for what it communicates about the geographic scope of the current campaign. Iranshahr is not a coastal city. It is not near the Strait of Hormuz. It sits in the southeastern interior, deep within the country, far from the maritime theater that has been the primary focus of prior strike phases. Striking Iranshahr Airport extends the campaign's reach into the Iranian interior at a point that challenges whatever sense of geographical sanctuary the IRGC may have maintained in regions distant from the coast. Airports serve as IRGC logistics nodes throughout Iran. They provide the infrastructure for rapid military transport, for the movement of equipment, for communications, infrastructure that piggybacks on civilian aviation systems. Striking the airport in Iranshahr is the message that no part of Iranian territory is outside the current operational envelope, regardless of its distance from the Gulf. Telecommunications towers were struck across southern Iranian cities in the same overnight window. CENTCOM released footage of the strikes, which showed drone-delivered munitions impacting tower bases, towers swaying and towers collapsing. Complete structural destruction of the communications infrastructure these towers support. The telecom degradation campaign serves a specific military function that is distinct from the bridge and airport strikes. It degrades the ability of IRGC units in the south to communicate with each other and with command nodes in the interior. Distributed military operations depend on reliable communications. Without them, IRGC commanders in different locations cannot coordinate, cannot share targeting data, cannot synchronize responses to American strike activity. A military force whose communications are being systematically degraded by tower strikes while its road and rail access is simultaneously being severed by bridge strikes is experiencing the kind of compound operational isolation that is difficult to manage through improvisation and backup systems. 3 specific Iranian military systems confirmed destroyed in CENTCOM's official target list for this operational period deserve specific mention because they include a platform that has not previously appeared in the public accounting of this conflict's target sets. The Majid-88 is an Iranian short-range air defense system, a self-propelled air defense platform that the IRGC has been deploying to protect ground forces and fixed installations from drone and aircraft attack. Its confirmed destruction in tonight's operation removes local air defense coverage from whatever position it was protecting. The Moj-6 is an Iranian suicide combat aerial vehicle, a drone specifically designed for one-way attack missions against ground targets. These are distinct from the Shahed family in their intended employment profile and represent one of the elements of Iran's growing drone inventory that has been targeted systematically throughout the campaign. The Camera 99 is the platform that makes this operational period's CENTCOM target list significant in a new way. It is a one-way attack drone that Iran only publicly announced in 2025, a relatively new addition to the IRGC's unmanned strike inventory that had not previously appeared as a confirmed target in the public accounting of this campaign's confirmed kills. Its appearance in CENTCOM's confirmed target list means American forces have located and destroyed examples of a system that Iran introduced into its inventory within the last year. That is a targeting intelligence achievement that speaks to the depth of American ISR coverage of Iranian military assets. New systems being identified, located, and destroyed within months of their public introduction. The power situation in southern Iran is deteriorating with each operational night. Bandar Abbas, Iran's most important Gulf port, is now in complete darkness. Video from the city shows street lighting gone, though some apartment windows retain power from backup sources, suggesting partial rather than total grid failure in different sections of the city. Kish Island, the small Persian Gulf island that has been struck in previous operational periods and again tonight, has experienced a total power outage. The entire island dark following strikes that appear to have hit a power generation facility on what is, by the presenter's own description, an extremely small island where any significant infrastructure strike produces island-wide effects. The cumulative power disruption across Bandar Abbas, Kish Island, and the broader southern Iranian grid adds to the pressure already created by Iranian government admission that the national power grid is at the brink of failure due to accumulated war damage. IRGC ground forces are being targeted simultaneously with the infrastructure. This is the second or third consecutive day that the strikes have targeted not only bridges, airports, railway junctions, and telecommunications towers, but also the IRGC ground forces personnel and positions in the bordering areas. The areas where the ground forces Iran would need to deploy toward the coast are concentrated. The IRGC military positions in Bushehr province were struck in the same operational window as the infrastructure targets. The specific combination of infrastructure destruction and ground forces targeting in the same operational night creates a compounding effect. The personnel and equipment that might be repositioned to compensate for damaged infrastructure are themselves being attrited simultaneously. This consecutive targeting of IRGC ground forces across multiple nights is a development that has not received adequate analytical attention in the public coverage of this conflict. The campaign did not begin by targeting ground forces. It began with naval assets, coastal radar, anti-ship missile systems, and the maritime infrastructure that enables Iran to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait. The consistent return to IRGC ground forces over the last several days suggests that CENTCOM's target development process has extended beyond the maritime threat set into the broader Iranian ground military capability. The personnel, vehicles, and fixed positions of the Army component of the IRGC that would be relevant to any scenario involving ground operations in or near the coastal areas and islands. Targeting ground forces in the bordering areas, the zones where Iranian military concentration would be highest for any movement toward the coast, while simultaneously cutting the roads and railways those forces would use to reinforce their positions, is the combination that creates the most comprehensive military degradation possible from an air campaign, attriting the forces and destroying the networks they would use to move simultaneously. There is one dimension of Iranian naval capability that the available reporting addresses honestly as surprisingly complicated to fully eliminate: the small, fast attack boat fleet. Iran's larger naval vessels, the kind of platforms that are easy to identify on radar, easy to track, and impossible to hide from American surveillance, were largely destroyed in earlier phases of the conflict, reportedly back in the February-March operational period when the war in its current form began. What remains is a mosquito fleet of small, fast, maneuverable boats that hide near the islands in the Gulf, are brought out for specific operations, and can be reassembled and redeployed relatively quickly because of their small size and the concealment that island geography provides. These boats are the mechanism by which the IRGC has been conducting the attacks on commercial shipping that triggered and have sustained the current military campaign. They are harder to eliminate comprehensively than the large vessels precisely because of their small signature, their speed, and the distributed island hiding locations from which they operate. The ongoing strikes on Kish Island and Keshem Island, confirmed again tonight, reflect the campaign's effort to remove those island hiding positions one by one, denying the small boat fleet the concealment that makes it persistently difficult to eliminate. The aggregate Kuwait numbers released during this operational period represent the most comprehensive public accounting yet of the scale of Iranian retaliatory fire directed at a single Gulf state since the conflict began. According to Kuwait's Ministry of Defense, 25 Iranian cruise missiles launched at Kuwait since the beginning of the war, 387 Iranian ballistic missiles directed at Kuwait, 1,022 Iranian drones launched at Kuwait, more than 1,400 separate weapons, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and drones fired at one country. The total, and the breakdown between weapon types, communicates something about Iranian strategy that the nightly strike-by-strike reporting doesn't fully capture. Iran has been conducting a sustained multi-weapon type saturation campaign against Gulf states since the war began, with Kuwait absorbing more than 1,000 drones and nearly 400 ballistic missiles across the campaign. Tonight, 32 more drones were launched at Kuwait, one of which produced a ground impact near the Iraqi border without striking any confirmed military or strategic target. The intercept record across these weapons represents an air defense performance that the running totals make visible in a way that individual nightly reports cannot. If Kuwait has been absorbing these attack volumes and the confirmed damage remains limited enough that the Kuwaiti government is releasing specific interception counts, as it did in confirming 4 cruise missiles and 21 drones intercepted in a recent engagement window, the picture is of an air defense system managing sustained saturation successfully at the cost of enormous interceptor expenditure over an extended operational period. But that interceptor expenditure is itself a strategic consideration that Iran is deliberately pressing. Air defense interceptors, Patriot missiles, THAAD rounds, standard missiles from naval launchers, are not infinite in supply and are not instantly replaceable from a mobilization standpoint. Each interceptor expended represents a reduction in the magazine available for the next wave. Iran's strategy with the 1,022 drone and 387 ballistic missile campaign against Kuwait appears to be less about achieving specific destructive outcomes. The confirmed damage from this campaign has been limited, and more about degrading the interceptor magazine that Gulf state and American air defense systems have available for more consequential scenarios. Running Kuwaiti air defenses through a 1,000 drone campaign that costs relatively little to execute, but requires expensive interceptors to defeat, is a long-game attrition strategy that the running totals now make visible at scale. The Iranian Armed Forces spokesperson's threat for tonight's response is explicit and should be treated as operational intent rather than rhetorical bluster, given the campaign's track record of following through on announced threats. Any U.S. attacks on Iranian infrastructure will be met with strikes against the infrastructure of the Arab states in the Persian Gulf. The characterization used was broader and more destructive than any previous attacks. Whether the IRGC has the remaining capacity to execute attacks meaningfully broader and more destructive than the 1,022 drone campaign it has already conducted against Kuwait is an open question. But the stated intent, combined with the IRGC's demonstrated willingness to fire large volumes of munitions at Gulf states regardless of intercept rates, means the Gulf states' air defense systems and civilian populations face an elevated threat environment in the coming hours. From Iraq, a specific threat has emerged that extends the kill list dynamic into new institutional territory. The Islamic resistance in Iraq, the umbrella designation for Iranian-aligned militia forces operating in Iraqi territory, has announced a $10 million reward for the assassination of President Trump. This is the second formal bounty announced against the American president by Iranian-aligned entities in this conflict, supplementing the $100 million previously broadcast by Iranian state media. The proliferation of public assassination bounties from multiple Iranian-aligned entities reflects a consistent pattern. The Iranian axis is attempting to operationalize the kill list through financial incentives to individuals or groups who might otherwise lack the organizational structure to plan and execute assassination operations independently. The American national security apparatus has been managing this threat with documented operational security measures. The Air Force One protocol changes, the prepositioned dead man switch instructions, the change in travel security posture, and the $10 million bounty from the Islamic resistance in Iraq adds another public activation attempt to that threat environment. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad simultaneously issued a security alert advising American citizens in Iraq to maintain heightened readiness, monitor local media, maintain communication with family, keep travel documents accessible, and follow emergency guidance, a formal alert that reflects a genuine intelligence-based assessment of elevated threat in the Iraqi capital. The most symbolically charged development of the operational period is one that American and Israeli forces have not claimed, and that remains unattributed: an explosion and massive fire at the Imam Reza Shrine in Mashhad. The shrine is one of the most significant sites in Shia Islam, the burial location of the 8th Imam, Imam Reza, and a facility that draws millions of pilgrims annually and carries enormous religious and political significance within the Iranian state's ideological framework. The shrine complex in Mashhad is not simply a religious destination. It is physically and institutionally embedded in the political economy of the Islamic Republic, a major source of economic activity, religious legitimacy, and symbolic state power in Iran's second-largest city. A fire at the Imam Reza Shrine at this specific moment, coinciding with the recent burial of the former supreme leader in Mashhad, and with an ongoing American military campaign that has already produced checkpoint attacks on IRGC besieged personnel during the Khamenei funeral, is an event whose timing invites attribution speculation, regardless of what actually caused it. The available analysis suggests that American or Israeli forces are the least likely explanation for the shrine fire, and that honest analysis requires explaining why, rather than simply asserting it. The overt precision campaign that has characterized American military operations throughout this conflict is documented, acknowledged, and targeted at specific military infrastructure: radar systems, fast attack boats, missile batteries, communications towers, bridges, railway junctions. A symbolic strike on one of Shia Islam's holiest sites during an active military campaign would represent a departure from that documented pattern so significant that it would require extraordinary evidence to be plausible. It would also carry international political costs in relations with Iraq, with the broader Muslim world, with the non-aligned states whose diplomatic support the American campaign benefits from, that dwarf any conceivable tactical advantage from a shrine fire. American military commanders would not authorize such a strike. And the absence of any claim of responsibility from the American side, combined with the absence of any evidence of American aircraft in the Mashhad area at the relevant time, is consistent with the assessment that the United States was not involved. The more plausible explanations are an actual accident. Fires in crowded, Heavily used public facilities are not rare historical events, particularly in facilities with extensive electrical infrastructure, active heating and cooking operations, and millions of annual visitors, or a deliberate act by the organized Iranian anti-regime opposition, specifically the elements operating under the designation of the Immortal Guard, who have demonstrated throughout this conflict that they possess the operational capability to carry out attacks against IRGC-adjacent targets in major Iranian cities. The Mashhad checkpoint attacks during the Khamenei funeral established that capability in the same city where the shrine fire occurred. A fire at the Imam Reza shrine carries a specific symbolic weight for the Iranian regime that a checkpoint attack does not. It strikes at the religious political infrastructure of the Islamic Republic, rather than at its military security apparatus. Whether this fire represents a deliberate symbolic act or an unfortunate coincidence of timing is not established in the available reporting. And the honest analytical position is that both explanations are plausible, and neither can be confirmed on the current evidence. The strategic picture emerging from tonight's operational reporting is one of a campaign that has crossed from the maritime and nuclear-adjacent targeting of its earlier phases into the comprehensive infrastructure attack that Trump publicly named as the next threshold. Bridges are falling in Hormuzgan province. The railway junction at Bandar Abbas is struck. Iranshahr Airport in the southeastern interior is hit. Telecommunications towers are coming down across southern cities. IRGC ground forces are being targeted at the same time as the infrastructure they use. Kish Island is dark. Bandar Abbas is dark. A new Iranian drone announced in 2025 appears on CENTCOM's confirmed kill list. Iran didn't believe the bridge warning. Now, the Kohestan bridge is split in the middle of Khmer County, and the man who was crossing it when the bomb hit the center span will not be crossing it again. The IRGC was using that route to move toward the south. It cannot use it now, and the routes it might reroute through are being struck in the same operational window one by one, as American precision munitions work through a targeting list that was built while Iran's leadership was deciding whether Trump was serious. He was serious. Bridge day arrived. The infrastructure is going down. The question is not whether the compression campaign is real anymore. It is what Iran's broader and more destructive promised retaliation actually produces in the next operational window, and whether its remaining drone and missile inventory can deliver damage at that scale against an air defense architecture that has been absorbing and intercepting its fire for weeks. The bridges are gone, the airports are struck, the towers are down, and in Mashhad, a fire burns at a shrine with no claimed cause and no claimed responsibility, in a city where the last supreme leader was just buried.